I did a story on TikTok yesterday that pulled my account down. But there are very many lessons I learned from that whole thing. Is the number of cancer cases in Kenya. Oh my goodness. I've done videos, very controversial videos on TikTok. I've never seen that kind of feedback. The number of people seeking to know, how can I deal with my cancer? How can I even people that I know who never told me they were suffering from cancer, like in my inbox, Mary, you are sick, you didn't tell me. I think cancer is like homa in Kenya as you're speaking. It's actually like a cold in this country. Just like people are dying privately.
I mean, the best way to look at the difference between a GMO and hybrid, or to give like a human example. So let's say, for example, you wanted to have a child that is tall. In hybridization terms, what you will probably do is go to South Sudan, right? So because there's likely to be tall, right? If I wanted to increase my chances of having a tall child, I will go to South Sudan and reproduce with someone who is a little bit taller. But in the case of a GMO, if they have their way, is they will say, hey, instead of doing that, we will go into the forest and we'll take the tallest animal there, let's say the giraffe, and we will extract the gene that is responsible for its tallness, and we will insert it in you so that you can be able to produce taller children. So you can see in the first example, you are dealing with human to human. These are same species, right? But on the other example, you're dealing with two animals that are completely of different species. A human and a giraffe can never have children.
They have this whole campaign that's happening on Citizen TV. I actually called them and I asked them, why are you not having a contrary opinion on your show? They don't know, maybe this is paid for. They had talk shows in Kitale about BT maize, and of course, it's a sanitization of BT maize. They say it's not being pushed down the throat, but it's actually being pushed down the throat. Because when you've released a GMO seed into the market, you've not talked about the effect of bees from that crop to another crop. You know, there's going to be cross-pollination. We have wind pollination. We have insect pollination from a GMO farm to an organic farm. No one has discussed how that is going to transpire. So in a subtle way, they're going to kill the organic seed.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the top. Welcome to the Organic Perspective. This is where we get to have a conversation around some of the biggest topics in the world of agriculture. And today I've got very exciting topics that we'll be talking about. But first, I just want to have a sort of appreciation to some of you guys who tuned in our first episode. And you left us some really good comments, and you were like, yeah, this is something that you would like to see us continue doing. On YouTube, we got a comment from Heritage Homes where she says, bravo, listening this podcast where I prepare our harvest of indigenous vegetables to cook. It's a very enriching conversation. Thank you very much. And there's Janem on YouTube as well, where she is saying this is a vital conversation. You need to move around the country to educate Kenyans. That's something that we definitely be looking at. And also, apparently, Spotify does allow comments on our podcast as well. So there's Soap from Spotify who says, love the format and great insights as well. So clearly, some of you did love this format we are doing, and we'll continue doing it just to have a really new and interesting perspective on some of the biggest topics that are happening in the world of agriculture. Of course, I'm not doing this by myself. I'm joined now by my co-host, Mary Kathomi, who is a latest author in the authoring world. Mary, thank you very much for making time again for the podcast.
Thank you, Brian. I'm happy to be here.
Pleasure to have you on. I mentioned you are a latest author. I was very privileged to have your latest book, A Girl from the Slopes of Mount Kenya. It's a very interesting read as well, I must say, because if someone wants to know you a little bit more, I think this book does that justice as well. So it's a very interesting and great read. And thank you very much for making the time to share your story with us.
Thank you. I just thought I'm a very misunderstood person, or it's very hard to box me somewhere. So I just thought, let me tell my story. And I decided that on my journey of writing, the first book has to be about myself, just to clear misconceptions about who I am, and I wanted to give my story raw, like really raw as it is, and just people to understand who is Mary Kathomi, where does she come from, why her resolve, why the strength, is because a lot of who I am is made up of where I've come from, and it's just basically just a Mary story. I've not covered I've not like sugarcoated much. It's not a fictional story; it's a real story. I get people calling me, Mary, are you sure about the hyena story? I'm like, yes, it's a real story. Basically, that's my story. And it just sort of lays a foundation on my writing journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So that means we'll be seeing a lot more books from you.
A lot. I think we perform best in a crisis.
Yeah.
A human being performs best in a crisis. And I think sometimes God has a way of throwing us off a cliff. I think when you're thrown off a cliff, you think better, you think of survival. And I think as humanity, I think that's where we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are there.
Absolutely.
We are literally off a cliff, and we must be able to think to survive.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of knowledge, and I want to put this information in a book. I don't want to do it like a by the way. Like, you know what? Let me just do this thing for fun. I want to be more intentional and more consolidated in terms of packaging this information for people out there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty much important, considering we are in an area where a lot of people don't have the freedom to say what's on their minds.
True. True.
And moving forward, I think having that information in an accessible manner, and books happen to be ways that we can do that.
Yeah.
It's actually the best path for us to follow. Something interesting from the book, and I think I wanted more information, was I think you mentioned you write a book about that, was your acting journey and how that went.
Yeah.
So that's something I wanted to know more information about. But as you said, so I have to wait for the next book.
I've acted a lot. I've really excelled in the field of theatre, screen, and community theatre. And I thought if I put that entire story in the Girl from the Slopes of Mount Kenya, I'll not do that information a lot of justice. So I was the main character in Cobra Squad, and a lot of people look at me and did I? And most of the people, my followers, were actually very young when I was shooting Cobra Squad. And I promise I'm going to do a book on the making of Cobra Squad. Actually, there's a book that is coming up, the making of Cobra Squad, that is going to take the journey of acting, getting into the National Theatre, doing auditions, doing screen, doing community. And it's a very interesting journey. But I've also realized that as people like me and you and many other people in this area of advocacy, in the area of politics, we have a lot of history in art. I don't know why. We have a lot. Most of us have a lot. It's a creative work. I've realized Omtata is a big writer. When I look at people, like most members in parliament are actually playwrights and such, then like, I think art has something to do with what we are doing. And I think as you continue doing these podcasts in the organic perspective, it's something we should delve into. But it's a creative journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we'll just put a link in the description for someone who wants to get your book. They can do that on YouTube and Spotify.
And even on Nuria, in Amazon and everything.
Yeah. Nuria did a very good job, actually. I ordered from them, and the next day they were on my door delivering it.
Awesome.
I think they're doing a wonderful job as well.
Actually, Nuria is doing a very good job for local publishers. Sorry, not local publishers, local authors who are not using publishers. Basically, Nuria stocks books for people, self-publishing. Okay. Yes. So they're doing a very good job, because these are people, we would walk into a publishing firm, they're like, we can't take your book. So
we're not sure how many you're going to sell, so we're not going to
you're not investing in that direction. So kudos to Nuria.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. We've got very interesting topics that I want us to go over, and we'll give our own perspective on those topics and see how it goes. So I'll just quickly go through some of those topics that we have. And the first one is about GMOs. So now the National Biosafety Authority says that GMOs are going to be optional. They're not going to force GMOs down our throats. That was the CEO of Biosafety Authority, Anne Karime, saying that. Yeah, we'll have a discussion about that. Is that actually even possible to not to force people to adopt GMOs, because we know how GMOs operate. Secondly, I want us to talk about the sugar scam. Apparently, there was sugar that was imported by the so-called cartels in the sugar industry to the tune of 1.5 billion Kenya shillings. Such a sugar is actually not really ready for consumers to use, but somehow it finds itself into the market. We'll talk about MPs now want to increase the agricultural budget. Apparently, the amount that is being allocated for agriculture is not enough. Even if it's up to the tunes of 75 billion Kenya shillings, they want it to go to over 100 billion. We'll talk about that. Is that necessary, or should we look towards closing the tap of leakage that happens within that industry as well? We'll talk about Kakuzi, where they say that they had a profit over 300 million Kenya shillings, and they'll be giving out dividends of up to 16 Kenya shillings. So if you have shares on Kakuzi, you should be smiling to the bank. We'll talk about agriculture. CS Kagwe is named as the best performing CS in the country. That'll be interesting. We'll get to see why is that the case. And we go beyond the borders. In the UK, the Supreme Court just said that vegan products cannot use milk. So, for example, the Oatly milk products, which says it's Oatly milk, they cannot no longer use the word milk in their products because it doesn't come from cows. We'll go to just our neighbors here, Museveni. He says that he has not eaten rice for the past 50 years. Last time he ate rice was in 1979, back in Tanzania when he was in exile. So apparently telling us why he's still healthy at such a young age of 81 years old. So really, really interesting. I think we've got some pretty good topics to go through. Which one of those do you think has your eye the most?
As always, GMO. As always, it's very interesting topics. I'm excited to just do this and drop my opinions on all this. But at the time whereby GMO is being literally, it's being pushed down our throats. GMO is something we need. I'm hoping this energy that we have on this platform can just vibrate in every part of the country, because this is a conversation every Kenyan needs to be having about GMO. And I know it will. I am very sure it's going to be a talk in every home.
Absolutely, yeah. So let's start with that. So this is a story, and it says that GMOs are going to be optional. So NBA says the National Biosafety Authority has revealed that it's not approving the GMO technology to push it on citizens, but rather to provide an additional option to strengthen food security. So speaking during the media workshop, Anne Karime, who is the NBA CEO, said that the authority's mandate is to regulate and ensure the safety of biotechnology projects, but not to dictate what farmers should grow or should consume. She says, we are not in the business of pushing technology down the throat of Kenyans. Our responsibility is to make sure that whatever is being consumed in the country is safe. However, Karime is careful to stress that GMOs are not a silver bullet. That's an interesting language, if you ask me. She says that agriculture requires a host of interventions, including irrigation, mechanization, improved seeds, among others. She said biotechnology is just one of the solutions. This nonsense stand reflect a broader effort to balance innovation with public concern. The GMO debate in Kenya has long been contentious, marked by legal battles, public skepticism, and misinformation. You know, every single time I hear such a stories, they always end it with misinformation. For everybody who doesn't agree with their point of view, they say, well, this guy is maybe misinformed, or they're trying to spread misinformation. But my real question is, why do you think this is happening now? Why do you think they are pushing this GMO thing on our throats right now?
There are a lot of, first of all, there are a lot of court cases. We have a couple of court cases going on against GMO. In the backdrop, we won the case on the Seeds, Plants and Varieties Act, of course, which has been appealed by the government. And I need Kenyans to really understand this. The Act of Parliament, the Plant, Seeds and Varieties Act, was criminalizing sharing of seeds. So traditionally, the way we share seeds, the way you walk, like when you're driving and you see these people who sell seedlings, the trees, and you needed like a license of 200,000. If you're sharing seeds, it's a criminal offense. So we went to court in the lower courts and we won that case in the High Court. And that case is very fundamental on the question of GMO. And the Kenyan government has gone to court to appeal against farmers winning that case. The Kenyan government is representing the Kenyan farmer, the Kenyan people. But the Kenyan government has gone to court to appeal against a ruling that was benefiting the Kenyan farmers. It's a question of wait and see at the court. Is a court of appeal? At the court of appeal, but you can tell, Brian. You can just tell the government has been taken over. This is we cannot talk in parables any longer. The government has been taken over. The government is not pushing the agenda of the people. The government is pushing a foreign agenda. There's an agenda in Africa to push GMOs down the throats. And a lot of countries have resisted. The other day, Nigeria fell for it. Nigeria had not legalized, but they've now legalized. In Kenya, the speed of they're skyrocketing the speed of the uptake of GMO. And personally, I've sat in court whereby we have a case against the BT maize. And when the government officials, when I say government, I mean the NBA, the National Biosafety Agency, I mean the CARO officials, those agencies under the Ministry of Agriculture. When they sat there and I sat across them, they said that they were doing this for food security, to increase our food production. And then when the lawyers pressed them off the hook, that narrative changed. And it's not about the food security. Now the conversation turned to, it is to fight the pests. Specifically, we're developing our BT maize to fight the stalk borer. Because the farmer is spending a lot of money on the pesticides and the herbicides. And the question of GMO is a place where there's a lot of gaslighting. They're gaslighting us when we want to give an alternative opinion. When we even give them studies, we give them studies, tell them BT cotton has been in Kenya for so many years. This is a study. Since 2020, all the granaries where cotton was being processed, they were closed because actually the production of cotton never went up. It was it increased in the first year, but gradually reduced in the following second year and third year. These farmers had been funded in terms of seeds, they had been funded in terms of chemicals, they had been funded in terms of fertilizer. After the 3-year period, the farmers were left more in debt. So when we want to have a proper conversation about a GMO, they do not want us to have that conversation. So what I honestly think, there is a hidden hand. There's an upper hand when it comes to the questions of GMOs in Kenya and in Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think right now they are becoming a little bit desperate in their efforts. I think they are seeing how the political environment is sort of shaping up. And they're like, you know what, we have to complete this work in the next 1 year because they don't know what government is going to come next in 2027. I think with that perspective in mind, they're trying to just pushes down the farmers, pushes down ourselves, so that by 2027, when a new government is in place, they'll be like, oops, we've already released the GMOs, guys. There's nothing we can do about it. So now what we have to do is just need to give us more money so that we can sort of monitor what's happening in these GMOs that we've released into the environment.
Brian, If anything was going to be good for the Kenyan farmer, trust me, they were not going to give it to us. If it was going to, say, increase our production, they're not going to give those things to us. Anything they push to us is actually not meant for our good. When they have this whole campaign that's happening on Citizen TV, I actually called them and I asked them, why are you not having a contrary opinion on your show? Why are you? They don't know. Mary, this is paid for. So Mary, this show is paid for. It's paid for. So because then they're giving one side of the story. So they had talk shows in Kitale about BT maize, and they had farmers in the hall, and of course, it's a sanitization of BT maize, and of course the farmers are being speaking and saying how when we use the BT maize, you're going to our yield is going to increase because we're going to beat stock borrower, which eats to a particular percentage of our harvest, and there was no pushback, and there was not even an alternative opinion to this. And then they've gone to Uasin Gishu, still on maize. You can see there's a speed on this. I haven't watched the whole show, but I know they've released, the NBA has released tubers, the cassava tubers and sweet potato tubers in the coast region, which is GMO. And of course, they say, and they'll show you the cassava that is rotten. There's that attack on the cassava. I want to reduce on these, so we need the GMO on that, as if they care. And then they showed us they've released the Shangi. We traditionally have a Shangi potato seedling seeds. We have them. But now they've developed a Shangi GMO. They say it's not being pushed down the throat, but it's actually being pushed down the throat. Because when you've released a GMO seed or a tuber into the market, you've not talked about the effect of bees from that crop to another crop. There's going to be cross-pollination. Yeah, even sweet potatoes have flowers. There's going to be cross-pollination from the GMO sweet potato to something else. That's a question no one is addressing. We have wind pollination. We have insect pollination from an organic farm, from a GMO farm to an organic farm. No one has discussed how that is going to transpire. So in a subtle way, they're going to kill the organic seed. So to me, they're choking the indigenous farmer.
Absolutely. And one of their things, I think they want to tell us, we don't understand what GMO is. That's why we are fighting it. But just to define what is a GMO, normally when a farmer wanted to improve their seeds, right? So let's say they have a maize variety that is highly productive, and they also have a maize variety that is drought resistant, right? So normally what you will do is you'll actually crossbreed these two breeds, right? And the most important factor here, I think, to say is that these two are maize varieties still. They are all of the same species, right? So if you were to reproduce them, they will do that normally. So you don't have to have shortcuts. But with the GMOs, in the example of maize, they're literally going to a bacteria and they're picking out the most toxic gene of that bacteria, and they're literally inserting it into the maize. So basically, normally in nature, such a transaction can never happen because those two, the bacteria and the maize, cannot reproduce. So they're literally taking a gene from a fallen environment of a bacteria and they're forcibly inserting it into the maize plant. So basically making the maize toxic. It has high concentration of toxic both in the stalks and both in the corn. So if you're eating that maize, you're literally eating that toxin, that is in the maize. This is something that our forefathers didn't have to contend with, right? So that means you're introducing a new bacteria into your stomach. We know our stomachs are full of microorganisms. You're introducing this new bacteria into the stomachs when you're eating, because we know every food you eat, not all of it's going to be digested. Some of it's going to remain in the stomach. And as a result, your stomach is going to go, wait a minute, what is this? What are you introducing this to? And right, so you have that effect. In 2-3 years, you get people saying, you know what, I can no longer consume maize. and they're like, hey, what's happening? You go to the coast, people are like, I can no longer consume cassava, right? Same with potatoes. I think we're going to have a lot more of these cases that these guys don't want to talk about, and they sort of tend to think that we don't understand how GMOs work, and they're just trying to gaslight us and saying, hey, you guys have no clue what GMO is, or maybe you don't understand. But the real truth is we understand how it works, and we do know now that this is actually poison that you're introducing into our market.
Actually, when you say that, I've realized the biggest question for Kenyans out there. Kenyans do not differentiate between hybrid and GMO. I like the way you explained it. It is so straightforward. If you take a seed, a maize that behaves in a particular way, and take Katumani used to be the Ukambani maize. The maize that would, with 2 or 3 rains, that maize would actually grow to maturity. Take the gene of Katumani maize and these other maize, crossbreed them. You'll get the advantages of this Katumani and advantages of these other maize. Then you get a crossbreed. That's what we call hybrid. That is not a GMO. And a lot of that is done, orange to orange. You've seen even dog species. You want to improve a dog species, you cross this breed of this dog and this, and you get a better dog. GMO is very different. GMO, you're taking a completely different gene, not from that family, and inserting it on this other side. Like what you said, maize. They are taking a bacteria. And there's even a variety of maize in GMO, Brian. They've actually taken a pig gene. I swear. When I say this, people think, they've taken a pig gene and inserted it on the maize. When they took the bacteria and inserted it on the maize, the purpose of that bacteria is to repel the insects. But they've not given us a study and told us what is the effect of that bacteria, 1, on the soil, 2, on the human body. No one has done a science papers on that. And when science papers are presented to them of a contrary opinion, they're like, you know what? Misinformation. Is misinformation. And this is a conversation. And then you're taking all the power given by nature, given by God, handing it to a human being. And people have not seen the gravity of that statement. These GMOs are actually individual patents. They're people's patents. They're not NBA patents. I think the CS or the CEO of NBA needs to come. They're giving us half-baked information. Let them come. Let them show us who owns the patent of, say, the cassava and the tuber that has been released in the course. Let them give us the patent. They tell us it's owned by so-and-so. It could be a corporation. It could be multi-layered in very many corporations, but we'll still get to know who the owner is. The person who owns that patent will forever, in time immemorial, earn loyalties for every person who buys that seed. Have you improved our food security by making the farmer pay for a lifetime for that seed? Cost of production definitely goes up. Yeah. So when I look at it, they do not want us to have a wholesome conversation around GMO. Let's talk about the effects on the human body. Let's talk about the effects on the sea or on the soil. Let's talk about the effect on the ecosystem. The bees and everything around it. I think we've not touched on that area.
They sort of think they're going to gaslight us through into pushing it down our throats. The best way to look at the difference between a GMO and hybrid, to give like a human example. So let's say, for example, you wanted to have a child that is tall. So in normal terms, in hybridization terms, what you will probably do is go to South Sudan, right? So because there's likely to be tall, right? If I wanted to increase my chances of having a tall child, I will do that. I will go to South Sudan and reproduce with someone who is a little bit taller, right? But in the case of a GMO, if they have their way, is they will say, hey, instead of doing that, we will go into the forest and we'll take the tallest animal there, let's say the giraffe, and we will extract the gene that is responsible for its tallness, and we will insert it in you so that you can have that gene inserted in yourself, so that you can be able to produce taller children. So you can see in the first example, you are dealing with human to human. These are same species, right? But on the other example, you're dealing with two animals that are completely of different species. A human and a giraffe can never interact and have children, right? That can never happen. So through that, you're literally going outside what nature, outside the natural, say, settings of reproduction. And they will say, oh, we are in the modern era, we just want to improve the genes of our animals. But what they don't tell you exactly is there's something called gene synchronization, right? So when human beings, let's say me and another lady, let's say from South Sudan, have a child, our genes are going to mingle in a synchronized way, in a very adaptive way, right? So me and her, we have both same amount of chromosomes. So there's not going to be sort of this dialect of, hey, where is this gene gonna fit, or that kind of things. But on a GMO, you're introducing a foreign gene into a new environment. In that environment, it doesn't know how to behave, right? It doesn't know where to attach itself to. Or the environment that you're pushing into, it doesn't have a clue on how to behave in that environment. So what happens, you get some genes don't express themselves. That's why you see some of these hybrids are weak. So for example, if a disease comes along, it just destroys it very fast. So as a result of introducing a new gene, it caused maybe silencing of that gene. It cannot express itself. So it's these sort of nuances that they don't want to talk about to the public. And in fact, these are really, really concerns, because we see, for example, it's going to have less nutrients because certain genes that it was introduced was not synchronizing with that area. So I think if they are very much honest and they want to have an honest conversation, they have to be able to answer these questions. Yes, are there effects that happen into the genome when you introduce a new gene that is not supposed to be there? So if they are ready to have such a conversation, then it makes this kind of conversation very easy. Through that, then we can be able to hold them accountable and say, hey, you said nobody's going to be allergic to the maize. We have a lot more people who are now allergic to the maize, right? Who are we going to take into court for that? And they can be able to compensate it. So if we have a framework where people can be held accountable for introducing such a poison into our population, then that gives us a lot more leverage, a lot more ways for us to move forward in having such a product into the market.
When as you're speaking, there are thoughts that came through in my mind. We need, I don't know what kind of labs we have here in Kenya. Right now, all what we are doing, we are basically going to court to seek the banning of the GMO and such and such. We need to have a court case, and I'm hoping many people listen to this podcast. We need scientists. We need food scientists. Take those seeds, analyze them scientifically, and give us a scientific data on those seeds. Because there are 3 or 4 layers of how we could analyze this. Why can't we have people taking those seeds, analyze them, get the composition of those seeds, and do science papers or research papers on in regards to what they found out? And even when we go to court, because we have to seek redress whichever way, we have to seek redress. For me, this is a battle for the human race. We have to do this whichever way. And as we seek redress, like when you look at in the US, they've developed seeds that target a black male in the lab. And people have gone to court because of specifically for that. They develop seeds that would target the male in that particular line. So because they want us to have a scientific conversation, instead of just telling us, this seed is going to do this seed, let's have that scientific data of those seeds, including the patents, including what genome was introduced, what is yes, as much as that genome is going to fight the pesticides, we agree, it's going to fight the pesticides, let's have alternative information. What does it do to the soil? What does it do to the human body? What does it do to the insects? What does it do to the ecosystem? Because it's an ecosystem. And it doesn't matter how this country progresses politically, we must ban GMO. We must, it doesn't matter at what level GMOs will be at. Mexico, the owners and the fathers and the mothers of maize, banned GMO. And America was very unhappy with it because, they share a border. And Mexico said, no, we are going to ban GMO after years of consuming GMO maize. And they've seen the effect that GMO maize has had on the population. They banned GMO. It's never late. At whatever point we are at, we must ban GMO. Let me tell you something, Brian, that shocked me. My cat cannot eat pizza. I'll come home with a lot of meat. I'll come with pieces of chicken. I'll come with what? There are things I give the cat. The cat is not going to eat those things. I've seen videos even online where someone was feeding a bear, like a wild bear, came with a whole bag. I don't even mention it in the last podcast. Did I mention? And came with a bagger. The meat, the bread, the meat, the what, gave the bear refused. Patted the bear refused. Picked the meat in the burger, gave the bear refused. So actually animals have the instinct of refusing bad food, but as human beings, we cannot refuse bad food. And this is literally, the meat in between a burger is actually lab meat. But the bear can actually, this is lab meat, I'm not eating. I have done that experiment with my cat. I come with a very yummy pizza. I'll throw it to my cat. I eat a kula. Then I'm like, the cat is not going to eat this. But if I bring some omenas and throw, the cat is going to jump there and eat. I cook beef in the kitchen, the cat is. So animals have the ability to say no to bad food. But the human race has no ability to say no to bad food.
Apparently, one of those animals is actually the smarter ones in this ecosystem. So that's quite interesting. I mean, for me, the irony of all it is, of course, they mentioned that they want to provide an option for us to be able to grow more food.
An option for what?
If you look at our neighboring countries, for example, Uganda's banned GMOs, and they're literally feeding us, right?
And Uganda, they don't use fertilizer.
They
don't even use fertilizer.
Yeah, they use just their compost and manure.
And they have food. And Uganda is way smaller than us.
Yeah, they're selling food to us. Same thing to Tanzania. They banned GMOs, but a lot of our food comes from down there. So you're wondering, how does this make sense in terms of from a Kenyan perspective? How is us growing GMOs going to enhance our food security when both of our neighbors, our very close neighbors, have also banned GMOs? So it's quite an interesting perspective if you look from that way. And also, someone who is pushing GMOs on us, the president, has an organic kitchen garden in State House where he eats organic food from that garden.
There's something you have to do. You have to get the clip of Moses Kuria in 2023 when GMO was legalized in Kenya. Brian, you have to do that on this episode. What did Moses Kuria say? There are very many ways to kill Kenyans. This is just one of them. And you know what people did to Moses Kuria? They bait him up on social media. Mtu hajui kuongea. But Moses Kuria was actually, in a subtle way, communicating to Kenyans. Please make sure you get that clip. He said it. There are so many ways to kill Kenyans. This is just one of them. What does that tell you? This push of GMO in this country, there's an upper hand, Brian. There's an upper hand. Because this was a CS. This was a CS in the Ruto administration making such a public statement. So for me, that cabinet didn't have a choice. As per his statements, the way it sounded for me, the cabinet didn't have a choice but to embrace GMO. But when we started, I told you, a human being performs better in a crisis. So we're in a crisis, and we have to perform better.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it also reminds me, I think it was Ichungwa who said the other day, they didn't want to increase taxes on Kenyans, but IMF wanted them to increase taxes.
They say that.
So, yeah. So you're wondering, who is making policy in this country? Is it IMF?
Or IMF?
Is it the people we elected into parliament?
No, it's not the people.
That raises a lot of questions as well.
Yeah.
So in case you were wondering in terms of what products you should be looking for in Kenya, which are probably soon going to be GMOs, of course, we have the maize, the BT maize. They're introducing cassava, introducing potatoes. Cotton is already in the market. They also have sweet potatoes. And now they want to enter into sorghum. They somehow want to apparently they want to bio-fortify sorghum. So apparently it's not nutrient enough. And something interesting, we talked about whose interest are they serving? Because if you look at the cost of actually buying these seeds, so for example, in the case of cotton, if you were to go into the market and you wanted to plant like conventional cotton, 1 kg will get it at 150 Kenya shillings. But for a GMO cotton, it goes for about 4,000 Kenya shillings. So that's up to 30x the amount of conventional cost you're going to buy cotton with. But for a GMO, you're going to buy it at 4,000. That is 30x the amount you need to pay for a GMO, right? It doesn't quite make sense. Same case to maize. If you want a normal maize in the market, a normal hybrid maize, you're going to get it at 600 bob. But for a GMO maize, you're probably going to get it at 2,400 plus. So in terms of trying to reduce the cost for a normal small-scale farmer, this doesn't do it at all. And I think we've seen this movie before. Last time we talked about Burkina Faso had adopted GMO cotton back in 2010. They had to get rid of it in 2016 because the quality of the cotton they were getting was not good enough. And a lot of farmers were going into debt as well. We've seen this in India as well. A lot of farmers going into debt, literally drinking pesticides to kill themselves because they didn't want to pay the debts that they had occurred. So I think if we want to have a sober conversation, I think if NBA was being more direct to the farmers, it will tell you, hey, this is not going to improve your production. One, because we are not adding any new gene that's going to improve production for you. All we're adding is a poison into the plant so that it can be able to kill the pests, the bollworm. So I think moving forward, we have a lot of work to do in terms of making sure that this information reaches as many people as possible. And I actually tell the government that we are alert, we are watching, right? We are seeing. I think you mentioned there are cases in court already, so that is something also to track and look forward to as well. And I think I saw the Kenya Peasants League had a case in court as well about GMOs. Should be out soon, so that is something that we should be tracking as well. All right. I want us to move into the next topic, and I want us to talk about the question of sugar. So the Standard was reporting the other day that there was a scandal within the sugar industry, and it goes on to say a massive shipment of raw impure industrial sugar valued at 1.5 billion was delivered in the port of Mombasa for repackaging and sale for household consumption. So the scam involved a multi-billion Kenya shillings where raw industry sugar, which is strictly intended for manufacturing food like ethanol, chemical, soap, is being diverted, repackaged for household consumption. Investigators have recently focused on the 1.5 billion shipment, which approximately had 27,000 metric tons that arrived in the port of Mombasa. So how the scam works. So the cartel import industrial raw sugar, which attracts apparently 10% duty, which is much, much lower than what is expected to be paid of 40%. Then the guys take the sugar and they declare it for specific industrial refineries, such as in Mombasa, Kisumu. Then once they reach in those warehouses, they literally pack that sugar into 1 and 2 kg bags. And they put a logo there of some generic logos or brand, and they put it into the market. And as such, they are literally avoiding tax. And they don't have to manufacture it into the local required standards. So that makes you wonder, in terms of greed, if we were to have like a scale of greediness, that is like up to 100%.
So they even when they're doing the importation, they know it's not good for human consumption.
Yeah, it's literally meant for industrial production.
Oh my goodness. And they do it because they don't want to pay the taxes. And when it's in the country, it's repackaged for human consumption. Yeah. Wow, this is crazy. You know, I think every single Kenyan needs to have a resolution of stopping taking sugar. I think if there's anything we need to achieve, is just decide, okay, fine, I have a month of taking sugar. And from next month, I'm not going to take sugar. Because literally, we are consuming a lot of poison, Brian. Sugar rated with metal. You've seen maize with aflatoxin flood in the market. I think this is such a common story in the Kenyan importation area. The work of the Kenya Bureau of Standards, they're no longer making sure the foods that are imported in this country are actually fit for human consumption. That's why you see the cases that you're dealing with, the high cases of cancer, explosive, small children with diabetes, problems we never had. Actually, 10 years ago, we never used to have those problems. We are dealing with serious health issues, and you're trying to attribute where are these health issues coming from. Let me tell you, it's every man for themselves and God for us all in this country. There's no government agency that is going to save us, because I'm very sure that that sugar has already penetrated in the market. And actually, a lot of sugar that we consume in this country is smuggled through the northeastern frontier. Most of the sugar is smuggled through that side. And we are consuming poison. And there's no remedy. We have to be the people now to call to raise these issues. Are you going to see such story? Okay, you're going to see it in the mainstream media just as a story and just passes. Has anyone gone to court? Has the sugar been recalled? Have we seen it like being confiscated by the government? I don't know. I don't know. This is high levels of capitalism, very dangerous levels of capitalism, where you're literally going to package poison and roll it to the population. And it's such a sad state to find ourselves in. Just to bring in this story, I did a story on TikTok yesterday that pulled my account down. But there are very many lessons I learned from that whole thing. Is the number of cancer cases in Kenya. Oh my goodness. I've done videos, very controversial videos on TikTok, with a lot of feedback. I've never seen that kind of feedback. The number of people seeking to know, how can I deal with my cancer? How can I even people that I know who never told me they were suffering from cancer, like in my inbox, Mary, you are sick, you didn't tell me. I think cancer is like homa in Kenya as you are speaking. It's actually like a cold in this country. Just like people are dying privately. People don't want to talk about it. The disease is also very traumatic. It's very traumatizing. When you imagine going through chemo and going through radiation, and that way it wipes out the money in the family. It literally carries all the money, all the investment in our family. I realize we are dealing with a lot of cancer cases in this country. And that's a conversation we've not talked about. What is causing all these things? Such sugar, sugar meant for industrial use that is being sold in the market. I don't know who is going to come into the rescue, but that's a very sad situation to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. And all for profit. And the thing is, for the sugar that they're smuggling, it's going to retail about 120 to 130 Kenya shillings per kg. Normally, the sugar goes for about 170 Kenya shillings per kg. So
it's going
40.
to be cheaper.
Yeah.
In the supermarkets.
Yes, it's going to be cheaper in the supermarkets.
So at least
by
when people
40 Kenya shillings.
So when people see the cheap sugar, they should know this is the poisonous sugar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh
that's
my God.
that's
But
one of the
Kenyans run for cheap things.
Yeah.
Every
Unfortunately,
Kenyan, because of the economic situation, I don't know if it's just the economic situation. I don't know why we just want the cheap things. So that cheap sugar is actually the poison.
Yeah.
But that's what we will all run to.
Yeah.
God help us.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And this comes in the backdrop when the government said it's going to lease / sell some of the state-owned sugar factories, which apparently they are leasing for 30-year agreements. Some of this include, apparently, Zoya Sugar is a government-owned. Chemil Sugar is also government-owned. Sony Sugar is government-owned as well. There's also Muhoroni Sugar Company. All these were leased for 30 years into private investors to try and see if they are more efficient enough in producing sugar than they were. And yeah,
So the policies run down so that you can create an excuse
Yeah,
to
yeah,
lease.
yeah,
Okay,
that's-
that's the good word of selling public parastatals, public corporations. Just
Yeah.
run them down, post a lot of losses, to authenticate
say
a
it's
sale.
not working. Yeah.
Oh God! And this, when you say that these sugar factories, they get sugarcane from farmers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why would they make losses? Why
That's
would
one
they
thing.
be poorly managed? They are getting sugarcane from local farmers.
Yeah. Apparently, some of them own huge tracts of land as well, where they plant.
Yeah, they do the sugarcane farming.
Yeah. And I think that's when there was a lot of uproars, especially from Western leaders. They
Yeah.
were like, you cannot sell this companies because
Yeah.
they have
Huge chunks of land.
chunks of land that are at a prime location.
Yeah.
So that's why they had to opt to go for leasing agreements rather than actually selling it, because the original plan was to sell these companies to private investors. But after a lot of Western leaders were like, no,
You can't do this.
Yeah, they have such a huge amount of assets, you can't sell them.
Yeah.
And they're really, really strategic to the country as well.
Yeah.
Right. So if one day importers, stood and said, you know what, this is not making any sense, we stopped. So that means Kenyans can't produce their own sugar, right? So I think it should have been treated like a national security issue.
Yeah.
And that's why they opted for sort of the leasing rather than...
Just like they were leasing the JKIA for 30 years. It's just sounding the same. The Adani deal, 30 years. 30 years is a long time. Even looking at that issue, Brian, you know that the Kenya Seed Company is out for privatization. Yeah. It was actually, I think, the number 5 to be privatized. And you're privatizing a Kenyan corporation that government owns just 48%, 52% is still privately owned. So you want to the 48% needs to be relinquished to private hands. So look at this again. Look at this. Legalize GMO, push GMO seeds, sell Kenya Seed Company. That is supposed to be the protection for seeds in the country.
So apparently, this sugar that was imported is actually, as we mentioned, is industrial grade sugar. So it's not fit for human consumption. That means it contains heavy metals like lead, copper, and mercury, which are used for this industrial processing. So that means if you drink this sugar for a long period of time, these toxins actually continue to accumulate into your body. And one of the effects that you have is neurological damage. That means that you will have cognitive decline. If
What do
you
they
consume,
call that disease where people
it's
stop
memory loss. Yeah. And in children, actually, it can reduce IQ of children.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you just need to stop taking sugar.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just need to stop taking sugar.
It also affects the kidneys. So once in the kidney, the kidney tries to filter those heavy metals.
It's metal in there.
So obviously it causes inflammation and also leads to kidney disease. So that's one of the effects. And then the third, it also can lead to high blood pressure as well. So, and the increased cases of heart diseases. So when you look, there is an increased cases of non-communicable diseases. They're coming from somewhere.
Yeah, they're coming from somewhere. Yeah. People are asking, why is the Meru region topping in cancer cases? And they have these particular cancer cases. And then you look at the Rift Valley. The Rift Valley area, they have a lot of esophagus cancer, the throat cancer. And you remember there was even in the news when they talked about chai moto. You know, these people are just sick. Ati watu wanakunywa chai moto. I was like, oh my goodness. They're just trying to hide the real reasons. You know, and we talked about the pesticides and the herbicides being the cause. But literally you can see there are a lot of factors now that are relating to these number of... I've told you, the number of Kenyans suffering from cancer right now, it's crazy. They're just astronomical numbers.
Here are some tips that you can use to tell actually maybe you're drinking this industrial sugar. One of the ways it has a very odd smell. So it smells like rotten egg. When you open the bag the first time, this is how it smells like. And then secondly, when it's dissolving, it leaves like a cloudy residue on top of the tea. So there's some cloudy residue on the tea. So that means there are a lot of impurities in there that are not able to dissolve in the tea. So you'll see that pattern as well. And also there's a color irregular. So normally when you look at like a really processed sugar, it's kind of close to white. It has like a brownish sort of color. But for this one, it's like there's a sparkle of some dark spots in the sugar, so the mercuries and the leads are in there.
Maybe you should have also given us tips on how to stop taking sugar. Should have given us those tips. You've given us tips on identifying these poisonous sugar. You need to give us tips on how to stop it. Yeah, I think it's just something we just need to collectively do.
Absolutely. So I think let's move into another story, and this is on the budget. So MPs are currently trying to see ways that they can increase the agriculture budget. So it says members of the National Assembly and the Senate have proposed increasing the budget allocation of agriculture as key areas of crops and livestock values are underfunded, raising food security issues in Kenya. In 26-27 budget, the State Department has a ceiling of 60 billion Kenya shillings, and it's apparently demanding over 107 billion Kenya shillings. So under the 26 budget, the ministry has been allocated 75 billion Kenya shillings, of which 30 billion goes to recurrent expenditures, and then 45 billion goes into developmental agenda. This is about 3% of the 2.8 trillion national budget. Can you guess which sector has the highest amount of budget allocation?
Tell me.
It's actually debt.
Oh, yeah, debt.
We use 1.1 trillion Kenya shillings to
pay the
service
debt.
the debt
Yeah.
every year.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have the Ministry of Education, which takes about 650 billion
Yeah.
Kenya shillings.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. I was actually surprised to see education that
Yeah.
high in
Yeah.
terms of expenditure.
Just trying to think where that money goes to. Does it go
Yeah.
to the salaries of teachers? Where does it go to? Even back to agriculture, where they want to increase the budget of agriculture.
Yeah.
Where does most of that money go to when we look at agriculture?
Yeah, so apparently recurrent takes about 30 billion Kenya shillings of the 75 they're requesting. And can you guess the second program that takes the most money is actually the fertilizer subsidy program.
The one we talked about last time,
Yeah, which takes about 15 billion Kenya
15
shillings.
billion. And the fertilizer which never gets to the farmer.
Yeah.
So
Which
basically
has
a lot of that
leakages.
money goes to cartels.
Yeah,
A lot of
absolutely.
that money goes to people's pockets.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's earmarked as a budget for agriculture. Good, I agree. Agriculture is everything, but that money really does not go to lift agriculture per se. Because if that money is going to fertilizer subsidy, and still we have farmers on TV saying nimeenda kwa NCPB sijapata fertilizer, nimeenda kwa NCPB sijapata fertilizer, and our over reliance on imported fertilizer is also a whole other thing. What if that chunk of money was invested on organically local produced fertilizers? How many people would be doing those fertilizers? It'll be crazy. It's a good thing that more money should come to agriculture. Let them. I actually was asking you because I wanted to see how much of that money goes to NBA, because I'm sure there's a lot of research going on in NBA in producing the GMO seeds, which are actually funded by our taxes.
And they're probably going to subsidize those seeds for farmers, because no farmer is going to pay 4,000, for example, for a cotton seed when they can pay at 70 bob. So that's why we actually have to talk about these issues, because a lot of our taxes are going to funding initiatives. So we have to have our say as well. And then it's followed by a value chain. So apparently the government is trying to establish value chains like this edible oils value chain, the sunflower, rice, wheat and stuff. And then irrigation takes 8 billion Kenya shillings. And then 5 billion goes to research for pests and diseases and seeds. and then 3 billion goes to buying food for our reserve, for our strategic reserve. So it goes to NCPBA. Yeah, so buying maize, rice, and stuff. That's where a lot of the money goes. So do they really need to increase the budget, or do they actually need to seal the loopholes?
They need to seal the loopholes and reallocate. Whatever budget they have, just reallocate it to the places where the impact is felt at the farmer level. Yeah. Like literally, we don't need GMO. If there's any single coin that is going to NBA for GMO, is wasted money. We are actually funding our death. Take that money, put it in some other places in the agriculture field. Even research on biochemical way of prevention. Instead of doing more, let's train farmers on doing cross-cropping that will do away with pests. We don't need any improved seeds in the name of GMO. We don't need an investment there. And you can literally see when we say agriculture is the backbone of this country, it actually is.
It is. And typically they say every national budget should have about 10% of that budget should go into agriculture. So if you look at like a greater context of things, agriculture is actually underfunded in a Kenyan context. But the problem is the amount of money that goes to waste. Because if you look at the statement, I think it was Uhuru said we lose about 2 billion Kenya shillings to corruption every single day. So if you extrapolate that, that's about 10% of the Kenyan budget is wasted. So if we were to extrapolate that and see to the agricultural budget, which is about 70 billion Kenya shillings, so 10% of that, that's about 10 billion, goes to corruption. Right? That is the cartels that are in the fertilizer subsidy program, the illegal projects, the ghost projects that people have. I'm sure there's a lot of ghost workers in the ministry as well. So this is where a lot of this money goes. So if we are able to see ways to cut that waste, I think a lot of this money can be efficiently be used rather than of it going into waste as much as it goes to waste as well. So yeah, that will be a great things to follow. I think they're supposed to read the budget, I think this week or next week, to see how much they settled for that money. But if you look at the larger context, it's underfunded, but I think for me, they just need to close the taps. The leakages are happening within the ministry before they go forward to ask for more money in the ministry as well. All right. I think let's move into the next topic, and I want us to talk business a little bit because Kakuzi, which is a company that is listed in the National Security Exchange, just announced a profit of 387 million Kenya shillings, which it goes to say listed agricultural agribusiness company Kakuzi has posted 387 million after-tax profit in 25 financial year results. The firm's board of directors, in turn, recommended that the final dividends, so this is the amount that is paid to the shareholders of the company, that will be 16 Kenya shillings per share. That is double the amount that was awarded the previous year. Revenues from Kakuzi was at 5.4 billion Kenya shillings. It's a lot of money, with the leading grower of avocado, macadamia, and blueberry superfoods processed about 568 million Kenya shillings in pre-tax. So Kakuzi Managing Director Chris Flowers said that the firm is actually rolling out product and market fit diversification strategy. Among of those includes entering into the local market because a lot of their products that they sell actually for export, up to 95% of the things they sell is for export. It goes on to say that Kakuzi avocado profits grew by 96%, which was about 709 million Kenya shillings. That was up from 361 million. The farm's macadamia business also did a lot better, posting about 365 million This was up from 69 million in the previous year. Apparently, demand for macadamia and flowers are in the rise. It looks like there's a lot of money to be made in the agriculture world.
When you talked about the story of Kakuzi, actually, when we started the show, I almost jumped into that story because it was a very exciting story. Yeah. That shows you how much money is in agriculture. The entire picture you've painted about Kakuzi, this is a company listed in the NSA. Translate that to how much money a Kenyan farmer should be making, but they don't make. So translate that to making farming easy, making export for Kenyan food easy. Because the hardest thing to do in Kenya is be an exporter. Getting an export license in Kenya alone is $500,000. If the government was keen on building the Kenyan farmer, because when I look at this is a success story. Yeah. So translate that story to a Kenyan farmer. And the Kenyan food industry is not supported by the multinationals at all. At all. 95% of Kakuzi produce goes for export. Look at all the farms, the Del Monte, the Dalamea, all those farms. They do not support the Kenyan food market. So the Kenyan food market is supported by the local farmers. With all the bottlenecks, with all the brokers, with all the hard conditions of food production, they are still supporting the Kenyan. And they still make the money. The Kenyan farmers still make the money. With a lot of hardships, no roads, no good source of power, all those problems, the Kenyan farmer will still make something out of it. Just imagine if we worked on all factors of production, like genuinely worked on the roads for transport. Because I'm sure if you go to these farms, as I go to Meru, I pass by Kakuzi farms every day. The infrastructure is super. The mechanization is super. So that's why you see even on their avocado sales, they keep going up. And then Kenya is located at the tropics. Our soils are volcanic. Our soils produce, when you look at why they are performing that way, a lot of factors are working for them. So, and I was translating these to the local. I know there are groups of farmers that come together. They do avocado farming, kidogo farmers, but they will still sell those avocados through a broker for export. So still, the farmer does not have a very protected structure for export. But if a Kenyan farmer had a government protection, and this should even go to the CS of agriculture, if they made export of local food seamless and remove the bottlenecks and reduce the cost just to protect the farmer, you would see what the Kenyan farm would be. People will go to the farm to farm because we have this, we have the weather for it, we have everything working for it apart from those small things here and there. So when they say agriculture is the backbone of the Kenyan economy, it actually is. This is one success story.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just goes to show what you can build when you create like really good structures in place for you to run like a company, because some of these numbers are actually staggering. So in 25 they did in terms of revenue, they did 5.4 billion Kenya shillings in revenue. And then they made a profit of 387 million Kenya shillings. So in return, they will be paying the shareholders 16 bob per share. So I actually did the math in this. So let's say if you wanted to earn 100,000 Kenya shillings from the dividends, you wanted them to pay you, because in the NSC currently the price share is about 423 Kenya shillings.
Per share?
Yeah, per share. Mm-hmm. So you'll need to invest about 2.6 million Kenya shillings.
Yes.
Of in buying the shares of Kakuzi for you to get a check of 100,000, right?
Yeah.
So I think for me this is a much it's a much better use of your money, rather than investing in other things in the economy right now, because the good thing about investing in such a company, you're giving them like money for them to be able to explore other ways, because now you
increasing their productions.
They can use that money into a productive use of that money, rather than some of the guys just taking the money to Dubai or like to Seychelles,
or building houses.
So I think this is one way we can actually put money into the hands of productive people to use it resourcefully.
Let me tell you, Brian, it's not even rocket science. We complicate a lot of things when it comes to food production. When you come to Meru, where I come from, all the farmers say, give us roads. Just do a road. When I was in Ukambani Makueni, where they're doing a lot of fruits. There's nothing they want. They just want roads, such that they can harvest their mangoes on good time, and the mangoes can get to the market on good time. And I'm sure these are the structures Kakuzi has top notch. And on top of that, add their mechanization. Maybe they use machines in harvesting. They use machinery in almost everything. So their cost of production is way lower because they're not using human labor on a lot of these things. They're using machines. And this is exactly what Traore has done in Burkina Faso. He's imported a lot of tractors, and they do the lands for the people. And let me tell you, agriculture done well is the best place to be.
Yeah, I had a look on some of the companies that are actually listed in the NSC that do agriculture, and I was actually surprised. One of the best performing companies, the British American Tobacco. They are also doing very well in terms of how much they're paying to the shareholders, because in this case they'll be paying 70 Kenya shillings per shareholder. So that's pretty much good money.
Like if you want to get a check of 100,000 in dividends, you would need to invest shares worth like 2 million.
2 million, yeah.
2 million, yeah.
2 million. And the good thing about investing in shares is, so for example, right now the share is 410. So if it does very well and the share goes to 450,
you could still sell those shares.
Yeah, that's like an increase of 40 bob. So 40 times, let's say 2 million. Yeah. That's a good profit you've made, other than getting the dividends every year.
True.
That's a very good investment, I think. Of course, we have other companies as well. We have Kapchora Tea, which is also listed. Williamson Tea as well. We have a lot of tea companies listed in the NSC. So that was surprising. Yeah. And also we have Sassini Tea as well, is listed. It also deals with coffee, actually. So there is a good number of companies that are listed in NSC. If you're in the agricultural space and sort of want to invest in the NSC, this is a good companies to look at if you want to invest. And some of the most interesting thing I saw with Kakuzi is that they have diversified their source of income. So if you look at other companies like Kapchora, Williamson, they are specializing in tea. But with Kakuzi, they are sort of diversified their offering. So, of course, their main products, of course, avocados, but they have other areas as well. Macadamia, they have timber right now. They also have livestock in their land as well. They're doing honey as well. So it's a good diversified company that is doing a lot other things as well. So it gives you a little bit of buffer. So in terms of and something happens in the, let's say, like the Iranian war is happening, you can't export things. It cautions you from that.
And that's the beauty of agriculture. You do so many things together because they support each other. You cannot farm when you don't have a goat. I actually find people who are farming without animals, and I'm like, how do you do farming without animals? You need a goat, you need some sheep there. Even though, not the high end, you don't want that expensive way of farming. Like, you don't want to spend a lot of money on livestock, but you need the manure. So you have 2 or 3 or 4 goats roaming in your, that is still, you have some rabbits for the urine. That is farming, because then you want to support yourself in everything. You also want to produce your fertilizer within the farm. Yeah, that is a very cheap way of doing farming. I told you I did a farm tour the other weekend, and I learned about the production of protein using something they do. It's called Zola. I'll share with you. Like where you have like a pond, a Zola, and this is a protein for animals. It's very easily grown. You just need water there, put some manure there. You can always harvest and dry for chicken, for pig, for what. Then because supplementing proteins in the farm, protein is expensive for animals. So this is a cheap way also of having that protein supplement in the farm.
Yeah. So, if we have such innovations and we support farmers to sort of think out the box, we are bound to have such innovations going forward. All right, let's move into the next story, and this is about the CS for agriculture. Apparently, he is the best performing CS in the country. It goes on to say the agriculture CS, Mutahi Kagwe, has emerged as the best performing member of the President William Ruto's cabinet, according to a survey that ranked ministers based on public approval and impact, which traced up to 12,000 respondents across all 290 constituencies. So this should have been a very expensive survey. It shows that he tops the list by 86%. The survey attributed to Kagwe's strong showing and aggressive push for agriculture as the central pillar for the economy. His direct prioritizing local production of wheat and strategic animal feeds are cited as among of his interventions in the agricultural industry. Other CSs who are ranked as high, we have CS for tourism, Rebecca Miano at 84%. Ruku apparently is ranked this high at 82%. So I think public service, yeah. So interesting there. If you could have asked me what are some of the achievements of CS Kagwe, what comes to mind when you think about some of the achievements that CS Kagwe has done so far?
You see him getting that kind of rating. I'm sure he's touched something on coffee. He's touched something on the export of coffee. I saw the other day the Kenyan coffee fetched the highest at the auction in Mombasa. Fetched the most. And CS Kagwe comes from Nyeri. So if you come from the areas of Mount Kenya, you are a farmer, you've grown in a farm. I'm sure even in himself, he has a coffee farm. And farming is very central. It is not a theoretical thing. It has to be a very practical thing for him. I am sure there are a few good things he's done there. I would definitely not take that away from him. A lot of things that are happening, bad things that are happening in agriculture, actually not in his hands. On the policy level, they are not in his hands. He doesn't have a lot of say on them. So to me, I think he's done some good work. He's done some good work in the Ministry of Agriculture that are noticeable or they can be felt at the farming level. The bad things that we're seeing in agriculture are very mostly on the presidential side of it. When the policies, even before Mutahi Kagwe came, GMOs were legalized in the cabinet sitting. He was not even there. So I would not really beat him up on that. When I look at prices of agricultural exports improving, I could attribute that to him because a lot of good, I think even the tea farmers are a bit happy. You can remember 2023, there were demonstrations because tea was fetched the lowest ever. People are uprooting tea now, not even coffee. So when tea prices come up for the farmer, when coffee prices come up for the farmer, then I think there's something good is done. There must be something good is done on that particular level. Yeah,
absolutely. And one of the things I was seeing here is the Kiamis system, apparently that was done under his tenure. The system where they used to pay farmers, for example, for the fertilizer subsidy program, apparently has over 7 million Kenyan farmers in there. So apparently that was
as a success story.
Yeah.
Because they've sort of weeded out a lot of brokers in there.
Yeah. So there's that, of course, you mentioned about tea and coffee value additions there. And also is proposing to slash tax relief for agricultural exporters from 16% to 8%. So I'm not sure how much was it.
He could be going against the IMF, but,
Yeah.
Maybe that's why he's doing well.
Yeah, for sure. And good for him. And it is one of the ministers that has been low key in terms of politics. I haven't seen
him in politics at all.
Kitangatanga, because when he was brought in for the Gen Z
after the Gen Z revolution.
Yeah. Apparently to stable the.
Yeah, and he sort of put his feet on the job. And he sort of stayed away from politics.
From the politics.
So it is with Miano too. Even Miano has sort of steered away from politics and sort of is doing the job with Aisha Speed coming to Kenya, she was very instrumental in the way the guy really publicized the Kenyan country,
Yeah.
So I would say we still have good CSs who know what they're doing in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also goes to show if we were to stick like in terms of implementing our constitution, because if you look at the core, it was trying to weed out politicians from having such a CS positions. It was trying to bring in managers and technocrats who can actually run these systems. If you look at positions that have been held by politicians, they are really, really down there. The Murkamans of the politicians.
So bad.
Who was it? The CS for Trade before he was sacked. Is it? Okay. Yeah, Kuria. CS Kuria. So they didn't do pretty well, but I think what our constitution envisioned is how can we have such a technocrats who can actually be able to run our ministries more efficiently and practically. And I think he fits in that system as well of hands-on and trying to make sure that things work. One of the things I will recommend to him is actually look about the issue of organic fertilizer. I think we recommended this last time in terms of including in the fertilizer subsidy program. If you look at our soils are in a very bad state. 63 of Kenyan productive soils, 63% of that is actually acidic.
Yeah. You're right, because of excessive use of fertilizer.
Even if farmers continue applying the synthetic fertilizers,
it's getting worse and worse.
Can't uptake those nutrients. So I think from that perspective, I think this is an urgent issue that needs to be tackled. And he needs to embrace the regenerative and sort of sustainable agroecology part of the world. I haven't seen that come from the ministry, and I understand why, because there's a lot of guys in the background saying wanting the synthetic fertilizers to go on.
Because people make something out of it. People are making money out of it.
So I think this one area I could improve on, but kudos for him. I mean, the best thing we could want is for him to actually do better and succeed. Because if he does, then our farmers are happy as well. So kudos to him. I want us to go into the UK for a bit here, and the UK Supreme Court unanimously ruled that Oatly, which actually makes plant-based milk from oats, that is, cannot use the phrase post-milk generation for its oat-based products drinks in the UK. Oatly argued that the designation, which they were calling the post-milk generation, only referred to the name of the product, but not necessarily reflecting the drink as being a milk product, right? But the UK dairy did not agree, suggesting that any use of the word milk in relation to non-dairy food products must be prohibited. So the court rejected Oatly's segment arguments, holding that designation is not limited to products name only. Instead, it covers use of the protected dairy terms. So apparently, the word milk in the UK is actually protected in respect of food and drink. Moreover, the court clarified that the legislation is concerned not only for consumer protection, but also maintaining fair competition in agricultural market.
It's a whole consumer protection story. And I didn't know you had this story. And when I was driving here, these were the thoughts that were going through my head. If people were to brand products in the supermarket per the ingredients, no one is going to buy anything from the supermarket. Like if you're selling milk, call it milk. If you're selling cereals and it's not cereals, give it the name that it's supposed to have. Because most of the things that are the consumer goods, the things on the shelves are not what we call them. So we are actually duping the consumer. You're making the consumer believe you're selling milk and you're not actually selling milk. So to me, that's a landmark ruling. And the good thing, and it will be used as a precedent in other countries, and it should be used as a precedent even in Kenya. A lot of things we call milk is not actually milk in our supermarkets. And if it's milk, call it milk. If it's something else, call it what it is. Because I see these packages of packs of fruits. There's small fruit, like a banana there, like a berry there. There's no banana in there. There's no berry in there. It's something else with a flavor of that fruit. But then you call it that fruit. Because I think this is so, I think the person who is an underdog and beaten in all this is a consumer. The consumer is consuming a lot of poison. There's a lot of lies in the market. Tell people the truth. Tell the people what you're selling. Don't call something milk when it's not milk. We will need government legislation on that level. We need the government to protect the consumers. Because we have a lot of poison that is being sold on shelves. When you look at these, are they energy drinks, soft drinks, literally chemicals? Yeah. But they'll call it energizer. And it's actually not an energizer. It's something else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And especially if you look at from a competition point of view, or like from deceptive marketing, because what they're doing, they are trying to claim that their product's milk, but it's not actually milk, and it doesn't provide the nutrients
that milk could provide.
Yeah, that the milk could provide. So you are actually deceiving consumers in a way of saying, hey, we are selling you milk, but it's not milk, right? You're just crushing some oats here and there and then putting in some water and some additives and selling it as milk. And I've had the chance of testing the milk.
The oat milk?
It doesn't taste that great, right? It's not a great milk product, but I think it's a sense, when you're used to eating something, and then you eat it over and over, you just adapt to that taste. So I think most of the people in the UK, maybe who have been drinking this oat milk for a long time, they don't know any other taste than the taste of oat milk. So they think that this is actually this is what milk is supposed to taste like.
Let me say something, Brian. Kenyans are yet to get a very rude shock when they start properly consuming GMO food. I'm saying this in reference to taste. Because when you leave this country, you go to Dubai, all the food tastes different. You just want to come back home because of the food. It looks really nice, the pineapples, the pawpaws, the melon. The minute you put that food in your mouth, you're like, oh my goodness, was this a pineapple? And this is something I've experienced myself, And for me, there's actually been a degeneration of bananas in this country. Yeah. The bananas I ate 10 years ago are not the bananas I get in the market now. But since I have a lot of experience in identifying an organic banana, even when I go to the market, I know the banana to buy. The improved bananas killed what we knew in terms of organic. The Kisii bananas that we used to eat, the taste is different. When you talk to people that have come into this country, they talk big about our food, our meat, our mahindi choma, our melons, our pineapple, because of the organic nature of this food. Kenyans have now gotten to the point whereby when you taste the food, you will not be sure what you're exactly tasting, because even when it comes to milk, there's something about real organic milk and this other milk that I don't know what name to give it. And something, your mouth, your body as a human being has enzymes, and enzymes are all the way from your mouth. Your mouth is actually able to tell what is organic in terms of the taste buds, because that's you're wired to interpret nature in that particular way. So you're able to tell, no, this is not good meat. Why would you just taste a piece of meat and say, inyama ni tamu, and you still cool some other meat? It's still meat. But can you explain what's the difference? You actually have no words. You have no vocabulary to explain the difference, but your mouth can actually tell there's some difference from the Maasai meat and from this other meat. And of course now, and even when you go to the butchery, you see meat displayed. Because this is grass-fed, this was not a grass-fed cow. So these are all effects of tampering with our organic foods. The taste is different, and as much as the taste is different, even the digestion is different. Even the nutrients transmitted into the body is different. It's very different. So when you say the oat milk tasted bad, okay, it shouldn't be called milk. Yeah. It should just be something else. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's a win. In fact, and that, as you say, sets like a precedent of what to follow. And I think the next one should be what they're calling the fake meat, the meat that they are printing in the laboratories, and trying to say, hey, this is actually meat as well, right? So I think that should be the next ban in terms of, hey, this is not meat. This is some lab-made something else that is not meat, but we want you to think it's meat. And of course, the main target for these products are for vegans. And, we respect that. But if you, they should have called it something else.
I know we have a lot of followers on this organic journey, and I really call upon lawyers. When I have an opportunity, I want to call upon lawyers to go to court. When you go to court on something, you don't have to win in court, but you've won by the fact that you've gone to court, you've documented that journey. We would love to see people going to court and seeking a chemical analysis of things that you're consuming. Let those things be presented in the market. We might lose the case in court, but there's a precedent that has been set. There is a legal paper that will sit in court and show there was a process done on this, on this, on this. I think we should be in court on so many things. The government is supposed to be protecting the people, but the government is not protecting us. We need people going to court to get analysis of foods that we consume, milks that are on the drawers, foods that have excessive preservatives that people are consuming. What are the effects on the body? Because these things are supposed to be adjudicated, for lack of a better word, by government agencies like the Kenya Bureau of Standards and such things. So I'm encouraging everyone to do something on their level. Let the farmer plant good food on that level. Let's do ethical farming. On the consumer level, let's call for good food. And when we have bodies that are mandated to make sure we are consuming good foods, let's sue those bodies. Let's go and sue the Kenya Bureau of Standards. Let them explain why this food is in the shelf in the first place. That is going to set a precedent for the future. Now we are talking about a UK case about don't use the name milk on oat milk because it's actually not milk. That is going to be a precedent world over. So what am I saying? Everyone has a place to play when it comes to fighting for good food. And I tell people things will change. AI will come. Food will never change. I know they're printing even apples in the lab. They're even doing lab eggs, lab meat. It will never replace the original food. We need to go to the farm to feed the human race. That will never change. So long as this is the composition of a human being, you will need to eat food from the farm.
Yeah. They've been trying to go for shortcuts. It's not happened. No. And it's good that you mentioned about the president, because the other day I had on the podcast, is it Kelvin Kubai, who is suing Monsanto, let's say Bayer in this country, about the synthetic pesticides that farmers are using. I mean, that case happened years ago in the US, but since he's suing the Bayer in the country, he's actually using those cases in the US as president to use it in the local cases. So in the long term, such a cases do have an impact in our local
jurisdiction. Yeah, you see, let me give you this other case that is really rippling hit all over. Okiya Mtata is in court on odious debt, and he says Kenyan government should not pay all the money borrowed from the IMF. I don't know, is it 2019? He said all those debts are odious, and the IMF went to court in their respondents, and they said that they have immunity. And here, Mtata filed a submission and said, you do not have immunity from a country's constitution. And so you're supposed to answer these questions. And they were supposed to be having a meeting with the president. They cancelled the meeting. So these cases, you don't have just to win in court. Even the fact that someone has gone to court like Mtata, it's a win on its own, is a precedent. It's a precedent on its own. And another, I would highlight this for lawyers who are watching our program. And these things, you just do them pro bono. Just go to court for the sake of humanity. There was that health deal that was signed, whereby the Kenyan government was supposed to give America access to Kenyan data, and it happened across Africa. All the African countries were supposed to sign that agreement, and every country was getting billions of dollars on that. And Okiya Mtata went to court and he said, no, it's infringement on Kenyan data. And I'm telling you, high, mighty people flocked in his office begging him to withdraw the case. And he took them through the constitution and showed them this, and this clause of the constitution. And out of that case, Ghana has withdrawn, Gambia has withdrawn, Zambia has withdrawn. So he's set a precedent whereby even other African countries can borrow. Because, when you're sharing private data, individuals' data, you're infringing on personal rights. So I would be so happy to hear that we have 10 cases on GMO. I would be so happy. And I would want to hear another case on milk. We have another case on this. It doesn't matter if the cases are lost, but we win to some level.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You just give them, make them on notice that, hey, we are watching you. We see what you're doing, and we are watching you very closely. Yeah. All right, so I want us to move into our last story, and let's go into Uganda, where Uganda's Museveni has shared the secrets behind his healthy life. So the guy is hitting 81 years, I think, this year. And it said that Uganda President Yoweri Museveni has revealed that he has not eaten rice in nearly 50 years. He said, I have not eaten rice since I came back from Tanzania in 1979. I have my food, cassava, millet, banana, cowpeas, and groundnuts. The 81-year-old who came power in 1986 says he prefers natural indigenous African foods such as millet because of their rich nutritional value and because they contribute to his health and strength. Museveni also suggested that it's not just about diet habits. He wants to encourage local food production and cut imports in order to mitigate the impact of global supply shocks. This is not the first time he has made such a comment. In 2020, he said that he does not eat bread and rice because they are both foreign to African diets. However, he revealed that the only non-African food he eats is Irish potatoes, which gives him a relatively low calorie count. Also, when he was addressing the UN, Museveni said he packs his milk, millet flour, fruits, chicken, honey, and plantain bananas during his trips around the world. He said, when my pineapple stock ran out, I sent my staff to buy from some store in the UK. I took one slice and terminated the whole exercise at once. He says that the pineapples he had were so hard, less sweet, and had ammonium-like pungent taste. I guess we know the reason why the guy is going so strong at 81 years old.
There's so many reasons you would hate Museveni. But I like the guy. I like him on a few things. He has a bad side also, but let me talk about the good side. He has a bad side, but I like him. I like him, the fact that he stood to protect his country's food sovereignty and food security. I talked to some Ugandans and they told me that the bill, there was a bill. I told you this whole GMO push, it's in every African country. But in Uganda, they walieka block literally because they brought it into approve kwa cabinet kama sisi. They brought it in the parliament as a bill and it was blocked. So every time those higher powers, I know you know what I'm talking about, those higher powers are calling Museveni, where GMO imefika wapi, parliament refused. And to me, and I'm begging every Ugandan who watches this podcast, do not allow GMOs in Uganda and Tanzania. Wacha Kenya tupambane, but they should not legalize GMOs in Tanzania and Uganda. At least we will have a source of food from these two countries. Museveni definitely is known. Of course, that last paragraph you read, that's a statement he made in UK. And it is true. I was also in Dubai. I couldn't believe that was a pineapple. So you taste, it looks beautiful, sliced, and the display at the dinner table, is warm. But immediately you put that pineapple in your mouth, even the melon, you're like, what is this I'm eating? So of course, it is true. The biggest problem, Brian, with our health, now we talked about it's sugar, it is wheat. When you talk about bread, it is wheat in there. If you're able to do away with those things, you already heal your body in so many ways. So kudos to Museveni, 81, and I hope he goes to 90. goes to 90. I know Ugandans are not going to love my statement, but just as an example of eating good, because he's been eating good, and even as an ambassador of Ugandan food, because Ugandan food is good food. We go to Uganda to get good banana stems, because they've messed our bananas here in Kenya. I personally stopped buying that banana they sell in every Kenyan market. A funny banana, I don't know, bananas are improved. It's not a GMO banana, it's an improved, but they completely messed the original banana. So nowadays I buy sweet bananas, the Kisii, the Meru, small bananas. And they also have an improved of that banana. It's horrible, my God.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen like a banana?
Yeah, the taste is
The
horrible.
taste is horrible. I'm like, oh my goodness.
And they don't stay for long. Like, you work away for like 2-3 days, it's going bad. Yeah.
So for the protection of indigenous food, Ugandans kudos. For your president being an example of that, we actually applaud them for that.
Yeah.
So because we want every African country we don't want GMOs. The few countries that have GMOs, our work is to pambana and reverse that.
Yeah.
We don't want more countries going that direction. And it's a perfect example that actually GMO is the intention of GMO is to attack our food.
It's to poison our food.
Is to poison our food. Actually, the
yeah.
intention of GMO is to poison our food. When you hear a president...
From a genetic point of view.
Exactly.
And also from just like a nutrient point of view.
Yeah. And we need to plan a delegation of organics and visit Museveni, just as an ambassador.
Yeah,
Him being an ambassador for indigenous food. And that should resonate across the entire continent.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting because Uganda is actually the country with the highest number of organic farmers in the world. Yeah, and it produces the highest amount of organic products in Africa. Wow. And that tells you something.
That tells you something.
They're doing something right.
They are feeding Kenya.
Yeah.
Without GMOs. Yeah, they're feeding this country.
Yeah. So at least from that perspective, from an agricultural perspective, Uganda
I would
is
call it
doing
a success story.
Yeah, very well. Yeah. And it's interesting to see because even from a scientific point of view, he is right because millet actually contains more calcium, iron, and it has more dietary fiber than white rice that he says he has not eaten since 50 years ago. It also has a lower glycemic index, meaning that it releases sugars into the bloodstream more slowly. Yeah, if you eat wheat, which when you eat it, it immediately releases the sugars into your bloodstream. But for millet, it releases it slowly.
Just a question, Brian.
Yeah.
If for a week, if you are not going to consume bread, rice, and ugali, what would you eat?
If I'm not going to?
If you are not going for 1 week, you're not going to eat ugali, the white ugali. If you're not going to eat rice, you're not going to eat bread. How would your meals look like for a week?
Probably banana.
Matoke?
I'll have some matokes.
Yeah. What you said, say you eat matoke on Monday. What are you going to eat on Tuesday?
On Tuesday, probably githeri. So I'll put githeri beans. And of course, both will have some avocado on the side.
Yeah.
And then from there...
On Wednesday...
Can I have ugali but ile ya kienyeji?
The brown ugali.
Millet,
The millet ugali.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be our Wednesday meal.
Yeah, and some chicken in there.
Yeah. What would you eat on Thursday?
On Thursday?
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of potatoes per se, but I think I might throw in some
potatoes on Thursday.
Yeah.
Then on Friday?
On Friday... I can repeat ugali tena. I can repeat ugali.
Because I'm actually, you see, I asked you this question because this is a typical question when you ask a Kenyan. When you remove rice, when you remove ugali, a Kenyan doesn't know what to eat. And actually what I want to tell Kenyans, remove rice from your diet, remove ugali. Sasa pambana. Just think about anything else to eat. Just remove the rice, remove the ugali, the white ugali, and the bread. Okay, The chapos, when I mean bread, white, whatever, remove it. You know, now apple, you'll have to eat matoke. You'll need some arrowroots in there. You'll need the brown ugali. You need to get the yams back there. You will need to do like njahe. You need to do like cowpeas, even though it's mashed, whatever. You see now, all these things, that's what's supposed to be food.
Yeah, and something quite interesting you mentioned about the pineapples. And usually the thing that they do is they usually harvest them kama as jakua, like as jakoma vizuri. So they still have that bitterness in them because of the long shipping that they're taking them from long distances. So it has that like a bitter taste because haikuachwa ive vizuri before they put it for export. And also it has been hybridized to avoid when it during transport in a gonga sana. So it's supposed to be hardened so that by the time inafika huko it's still in a stable condition.
I go to the market to shop, and you know what's the catchphrase for the people that are selling pineapple? In Uganda, madam, in Uganda. That's how they sell it. So, because literally the Ugandan pineapple actually tastes different from the Kenyan pineapple. That there's a lot in that statement. That pineapple, both are not organic, both are not GMO, but you can see the way the Ugandan pineapple has been produced and the way, say, the Kenyan pineapple has been produced is totally different. The chemicals that have been sprayed, the soils, the whole of that process tells so much about the quality of food that we consume.
Yeah. And this also reminds me during the time of COVID. You remember a lot of guys were like, a lot of Africans are going to die because we didn't have access to the vaccines or they didn't have a lot of healthcare workers and stuff. But Africa in the end actually had the lowest amount of mortality.
We just didn't die because of the food. Yeah, so food, and in my book, and I'm going really to talk about food because we've been taught food as a nutrition. Food is actually not just a nutrition. Food is medicine. But no one taught us food as medicine, for the body. Because the human body as it is, when you give it the right parameters, it heals itself. So if there's a mineral you're lacking in the body, there's this food that gives you that mineral. And if you had an infection, just because your mineral balance is okay in the body just heals those things. So we didn't die because our food was good. But you know what they've done? They've come for that food. They've come for that food. So we have to do everything to protect the food. Their wins, to me, these are the kicks of a dying horse. You can see the desperation. It means these are the kicks of a dying horse. So they'll seem like they're throwing huge punches, but it's just because it is the last straw for them. It's the last straw for them. They're not going to succeed. There's a serious awakening. People now, more than ever, know what not to eat. When even you go to hotels, people want, kama una kuku ya kienyeji, they're not going to eat that broiler chicken. So I think there's that awakening, and everything it pegs on the information that is available for the people. Yeah.
And, I mean, we live in an information age.
Yeah.
Literally, information is one click away on Google. But I also realized the information we're being fed, especially on these platforms, especially if you Google something or if you try to type anything into ChatGPT or like Google Gemini or like Grok, it's not going to give you true
There's
information.
Something that is not going to give.
They'll give you like average information.
Yes.
If you even try to Google about GMOs, it will not give you.
They will not give you.
They'll give you a contrary information.
I tell people, for you to do proper research on anything deeply, you're not going to go AI. You're not going to go Google. You're actually going to do a lot of reading and go to a lot of podcasts, listen to people with authentic information, science papers, thesis papers, and then you combine that information. For me, a lot of knowledge and information, I've never gotten it like online, because they filter this information. Facts be told, they own the systems, they own these things. So they're not going to allow you, big pharma literally is not going to allow you to land on that information. So we need to go the extra mile of researching.
Have to go and read it for yourself.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what it's gonna do is just gonna filter all the information. Then it's gonna say, oh, these are fringe sort of studies that are not proven, or like
Exactly.
it doesn't have the consensus of science.
Yeah.
And we know what consensus means after COVID.
You know what consensus of science means. I totally agree.
It's
Totally
accepted
agree.
information.
Yeah.
So I think we have to be vigilant. As much as we have like access to information, you have to also have that thought of trying to understand which information is actually true or false. Yeah. So super excited. That was all the stories that we have for today. I think it's been a really, really good conversation. I enjoyed it myself. Apparently you got booted out of TikTok as well. So.
Yesterday, I lost a very big account on TikTok. And you remember in the other podcast when we were talking, and I was like, I didn't come to TikTok to dance. I came to give information. The information you're giving, it is too strong. It is very censored information. It is true information. But Brian, there's one thing I mentioned, and I'll repeat it. There are 4 pillars of human life that are very important. There is health, education, there is food, and information. Information is so critical. Information is what shapes how we think. So when you give people information and it's sort of tilting a particular narrative, then of course they don't like it. But you know what? We build and we keep building. I lost a TikTok account and I'm building another one. And I'll be more diversified right now. So I will be writing books. I'll be on X. I'll be on Instagram. But basically, it's just empowering the human race, which is what we are doing, just empowering people. When people ask what is hybrid and GMO, we give them the core information about that. When people want to treat an ailment using something in the kitchen, we give them a remedy, When we know a particular plant can help, we just highlight that plant and share with the people. We will do it anyway, whichever way. So I'll share my new link and we will keep building.
Absolutely. So thank you very much for making time for the podcast. Really, really enjoyed it. Looking forward for the next conversation. So till the next podcast, remember to be organic. Cheers.